Watch your mouth. Your mom ever say that to you? There's something about it that's like quintessentially mother, to me, to hear those words. My siblings and I, we actually made up language, right? Because my mother had forbidden us from saying certain words. Like, for example, we called each other lizer because we couldn't call each other liars. Even though, let me tell you, all of my siblings were liars. And my mother didn't like the words use it in reference to going to the bathroom, like I need to use it, people would say, I guess. So we couldn't use those words in any context, even the correct one, right? Like, could you hand me that pen because I need to use it? Forbidden, right? But you can't blame my mother. She was just listening to the letter of James, right? I mean, there are so many parts of the Bible that are obscure or boring or both. But I love the letter of James because he does such a great job of speaking about what it is to live as people of faith. Even though he came from a totally different time, a totally different place, spoke a different language from me, I still understand what he's saying, We can steer a ship with a little steering mechanism. We can steer a horse with, thank you. We can steer a horse with a bit and a bridle, and we steer our lives with the words that we say. And I don't know very much about ships. I already forgot what the thing is called, the rudder. I don't know very much about horses, but I get what he's saying about words, They say sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And they are so wrong, aren't they? I mean, as anybody who's ever spoken out of anger or frustration and then immediately regretted what they said could tell you, or anybody who's still bearing the scars of something that somebody said to them decades ago, or anybody who listened to the presidential debate. No. I'm not going there. Our words matter. There's a quick jump between what we say and what we do and who we become. But of course, we all already know that. We know how important it is to choose our words. We know how important it is to make the choices that are right for us. The problem is we don't always know how to make them, right? Today we heard from Lady Wisdom, and she is often presented with her counterpart of Lady Folly, right? So think about, the angel and the demon characters, the cartoon versions of yourself, from the old cartoons, anybody? Or the two doors, that you have to choose. There's always the two choices. But the problem, of course, is the choices aren't labeled, right? Despite what the cartoon would have you believe. I mean, in the scriptures, Lady Wisdom is beautiful, and she's hospitable, and she has this lovely house, and Lady Folly is words that my mom would not let me say in church. She's messy, and she's ugly, and so anybody would know, well, I picked the beautiful, well-manicured home. That's where I should go, right? But that's not how life unfolds for us. And I gotta say, Lady Wisdom does not sound that wise in today's reading. She sounds kind of downright cruel, right? I mean, who's gonna laugh in the face of somebody's pain or mock somebody's trouble? And wait, am I talking about the debate again? What is wise about turning your back on someone who is struggling or suffering? But then again, we hear from Jesus today, and here's Peter, right? The rock on which our church is founded, the most devout sometimes, depends on the day. But he has just discovered or named for the first time that Jesus is the Messiah. And then Jesus turns around and tells him, "Get behind me, Satan." I mean, that's harsh, right? I mean, and honestly, can you blame Peter? The cancer's treatable, but we're going to have to basically fry every part of that body, part of your body in that area, and you're probably going to lose all of your hair and everything that you're trying to eat for the amount of time that you're being treated. And then, of course, you have to come back in every few months, and we'll see if it comes back or not, because we don't really know. You're going to have this beautiful baby, but before you can see it, you're going to be in hours, sometimes days, of agony. I mean, the truth is we could fix what's broken, right? We could heal ourselves, our relationships, we could fix what's broken in this country, but we would have to probably apologize. We'd have to forgive people that definitely don't deserve to be forgiven. We'd have to stop trying to be right and choose something else, like being in relationship. And is it really worth it? I mean, Jesus was honest. He said, I'm going to suffer and die, and then after 3 days, I'll rise again, right? But Peter didn't hear the last part, because all he could hear was the first part. He said, I hear you saying suffering and death. What are the other choices available to us, right? Are there any other options? I mean, honestly, is death a fair price to pay for resurrection? One of my favorite theologians is not a theologian. He's actually an educator, a teacher, a philosopher of education. His name is Paulo Freire, and he was a Brazilian educator, and he believed that in most cases we teach people by sort of trying to cram as much information into them as possible, right? To make sure they know all the facts they're supposed to know. And he said, you know what we should do instead? We should teach people what they want to know or what they need to know, so that they can be engaged with the world that surrounds them, so that they can be a part of making a change in the world that's around them. Like, for example, the way that I learned Spanish was whatever words they decided to teach me, right? So I know how to say tocar la guitarra, right? Even though I'm never gonna tocar la guitarra. I don't have any reason to say that, right? But that word goes well with hablar and other words that all have AR endings, so that's the first thing they taught us. Meanwhile, I'm not quite sure how you're supposed to say what we do together on Sunday mornings. Is it a misa, like a mass in Spanish, or servicio, like a service that we call it, or is it adoration, which is the word for worship? I would have liked much better to have learned by learning what I wanted to learn and what I needed to know to do my work, than to just learn whatever somebody felt like they needed to cram into me. Think about your best teacher. I'll give you a minute. Maybe her face comes to you immediately. Maybe her face is not even a her face, it's a his face. There are some good male teachers out there. Although it's probably a her, right? What is it about her that made her a great, or him, what is it about them that made them a great teacher? What is it about that person? Is it something that they taught you? Or is it more about who they were and how they were? How they showed you how to live? Or is it even more than that? It's about who they empowered you to be. There was a teacher, Marva Nettle Collins. She was profiled in Portraits of Black Women in America. And she said, I can never teach your kids everything they need to know, but I can teach them how to be curious and discontent. I can teach them how to see when there's a problem, and I can teach them how to solve it. That's not her words, but those are mine. Because that's what great teachers do. They help us to understand what's wrong in the world, what we can do, and what we can do about it to address it. And they make us believe that we can do something to make a change. And that's what Jesus was trying to do as well. Yes, his words were harsh, but that's because the lesson he was trying to teach us was important. If we know that our words become our actions and our actions become who we are, perhaps the way to make our choices is to go in the other direction, right? Start with who you are. And I'm sure there are many answers to that question, but the one I'm hoping you'll remember today in this context is, you're a follower of Jesus, right? Somebody who looks to Jesus as a model and example of how to live. And even though our mothers and Lady Wisdom and probably God get incredibly frustrated by the ways we keep making mistakes and saying the words we shouldn't be saying and doing the things we shouldn't be doing, the truth is nobody can prevent us from making mistakes and getting off on the wrong path. And some of the things that happen in our lives, the crosses that we have to bear, don't have anything to do with the bad mistakes we've made. They're beyond us. But Jesus said, when those things happen, because they will, you put your eyes on me. You turn and follow Jesus. You remember what is the spiritual parts of this world, what is beyond, what is most important to who we are and how we're trying to live. If you want to know what words to use, then turn to Jesus. If you want to know what choice to make a space for the Holy Spirit, however you do that, praying, singing, walking alone, sitting in silence. Ask God the questions that you have, and let God guide your life. Remember what Jesus was telling us, right? If you turn and follow me, even in the most difficult moments of life, you will always have me walking beside you.